All right, thank you for joining us again on this platform. This is another edition of Celeb Cafe, and we're still featuring our guest, Dr. Chibuzo Oyema, who happens to be the founder and the chief executive officer of Blacks Ancestral Native Communities. But he's doing something differently now. He'll be organizing a summit that will be taking place in Abuja on the 19th of September. And the theme of the summit is Japa Conundrum. And the summit itself is Anti-Irregular Migration Summit, AIMS. Dr. Chibuzo,
Yes, sir.
welcome to this special program.
Thank you. It's a privilege always.
You have a great event coming up now.
Oh, yes.
Now, tell us more about this summit.
Okay, the Anti-Irregular Migration Summit spawns from a passionate heart to correct an anomaly that I have experienced firsthand as a Nigerian and as an African. And again, the information is available everywhere on social media, in the net, everywhere, on how many youths that we have lost to anti-irregular migration practices. I decided with a group of my partners that we are going to change the narrative. The Blacks Ancestral Native Community Foundation, which is the NGO that has as its chairman Ambassador Sani Bako, MNI MFR, is set up to reconnect the disconnected ancestral blacks whose forefathers were sold into slavery with motherland Africa. And as we were on this project, we discovered that outside of those who are victims of the slave trade, the Atlantic slave trade that occurred several centuries ago, there are also people who by themselves have taken off from Africa and have gone to many countries, some of whom are in the limbo, who are neither where they chose to go and they are not home.
21st century slavery.
I'm talking about 21st century self-enslavement.
Self-enslavement, yeah.
Because they take off from home thinking that they were headed for a place of greener pastures, only to find themselves trapped in between and sometimes even too far away from where they intended initially. And so we want to assist. This is a problem that we have identified. We now want to assist the United Nations in resolving this situation, in solving the problem, because you see, as Africans, we will reach Africans faster than anyone else. Although this problem is a global problem, but we want to begin from home to address it. And that's why you have the Anti-Irregular Migration Summit holding in Abuja, Nigeria, which is my home country. Charity, they say, begins at home. So we want to change the narrative. We want to address this problem. And the conundrum that you find there just goes to exemplify, to show the confusion there is now on these irregular migration practices. People are asking questions, why not even concentrate on the cause? Yes, we are interested. We are actually more interested in the causes than we are in the issues themselves, which is, of course, the reaction to the cause is the scampering of young people and the anti-irregular migration practices. The summit has been scheduled to let our young people know that whereas there are problems at home, that setting out to destinations unknown to them will not be the best way of escaping the problem. That's number one. Number two, every problem has in itself natural inherent solutions that when you identify those solutions, it becomes a source of genuine, germane livelihood for you. You do not need a messiah, so to say, to solve the problems in your home. Those problems are for us to solve. And God has blessed us, Africans, Nigerians, with so much wisdom and intelligence that we are the ones fixing other nations. So running away is not going to give us the ability to fix those nations. Now, for those who must go and those who desire really to go, there are several legitimate ways through and by which they can go. Every country of the world, every nation, every organized sovereign nation has got legitimate immigration routes and pathways by and through which people can come and work in their countries. And as a licensed stockbroker who has been in the tourism industry for 15 years now, I have seen legitimate pathways through which people can travel. So why do you want to get on the Mediterranean Sea? Why do you want to go on foot on the Sahara Desert and get to the point where you would either have to pay with your life or would have to compromise on everything you knew as human value before you can get by?
Now, just before you go ahead to explain what this summit is all about, I'm thinking like somebody who also wants to japa in quote, and I'm asking, if you're asking me not to japa and stay in Nigeria, what is here in Nigeria for me? And talking about the whole of Africa, you're talking about all the blacks in Africa, for instance. What is there in Kenya? What is there in Ouagadougou, for instance, for anybody to stay and enjoy? What are the perks?
Now, before God will create you a citizen of any nation, God has natural inherent abilities that he has put in you. There are certain capacity that you have which will be plug and play in your local environment. That for me is my understanding of natural human nature, because God hasn't created me in the color of someone else's nation, because and he has gifted me differently also. And so my first mundane nature is to solve my immediate environmental problems. What there is in your home country, whether it is Nigeria, whether it is Kenya, whether it is elsewhere in Africa, is that your nation needs you before they will need anyone else to come and assist. That's what there is for you. That's one. Number two is that you are freer in your nature, in your nation of birth, than you would ever be anywhere else, irrespective of the eventual social status that you will attain in that nation. There is no other nation that will regard you more and better than your natural nation where you were born. However, there are persons who will migrate anyway. Migration is natural. Migration is to man what breathing is. So you are not going to stop anybody from migrating, and there is no such intention within our organization, Blacks Ancestral Native, and even within Blacks in All Nations community, which is a sister arm of Blacks in All Nations. There is no such intention to preclude people from, or to dissuade them from totally traveling, or to say, do not emigrate anymore. No, we have got no such intention. However, we are saying, must you migrate from one location to another country? Learn legitimate pathways through which you can do so. Work within the ambit of law. Follow the legalized immigration pathways set by that nation. The sovereignty of nations transcends brotherhood of man. Brotherhood of man rather transcends sovereignty of nations. That's what we were taught in Junior Chambers International, where I happen to be a member. So if brotherhood of man transcends sovereignty of nations, then it goes to tell you that before you will go to that nation that is totally alien to your community, to your natural environment, you need to know how that nation functions, what there is for you to do. You need to have the skills that that nation requires for you to succeed in that place. So you do not.
There must be a value to offer.
That's right. But before even you talk about
environment,
yes, before you even talk about the value you would offer, you must have researched to know what that nation is about. Every nation has got their own cultural system, have got their own traditional values, have got their own general systemic behavior and patterns. So before you go anywhere, you need to know where even you're going. That's one. You need to have a clear plan of how you get there. So if you want to go there because situations at home are bad and unfavorable to you, you want to ask certain salient, pertinent questions. Am I not employed in my home country because I lack the skills? One. Two, could it be that the skills that are required are not the ones that are needed within my immediate environment? Three, it is true that I know that there's so much favoritism in my nation, but could it be the reason why? Now, if you've got the right skills that your nation should actually be looking for, but because you do not have someone to speak for you for this favoritism problem that we have been hammering on in Africa, then you will then come to the point of deciding to travel. And in that travel, you now would ask yourself, how can I do it within the legal framework, within the legitimate framework, to ensure that when I arrive in the place, that I am not going to constitute social nuisance to that environment where I have gone in search of greener pastures. Because every nation indeed will need a professional to arrive in their shores, and they will be so glad to welcome you.
Dr. Chibuzo, if I allow you to run, you will run on and on and on and on. It's your baby, and I give that to you. Now, let's talk about this summit, Anti-Irregular Migration Summit. Definitely, you're not going to be the only one who will be speaking at the summit. Who are the people who will be coming to speak in such a way that the younger generation and everyone who is planning to japa in court will be able to speak to convince them?
Okay, now, like I told you, the essence of this summit is not to dissuade young people from traveling,
Yeah,
or from emigrating. No, the essence is to set records straight and teach them how to do it legitimately, and even to let them know that there are some opportunities they yet do not know that are available in Africa,
in their country,
and then open their eyes to those available. But where they now insist that they would like to travel, there is Globe Jobs Aid, a Canadian organization that we are partnering, that helps to bring people to work in environments everywhere in the world within the United Nations umbrella that are in need of labor. So Globe Jobs Aid will help in facilitating such persons' travel. But that is even not why this summit is organized. This summit is organized to resolve the problem of people that I call suicidal travelers, who carry their bags without knowing where they are going, follow only what their uncle, pastor, brother, sister, imam, whatever tells them, and just go sheepishly and then end up where they do not desire. And to speak to this very heart of the summit will be Professor, of course, the very eloquent Professor P.L.O. Lumumba.
Wow.
You were there with me when his flight details was finalized.
That's right.
He shall be here.
That's right.
We have him scheduled to attend. He will be the keynote speaker
Wow.
at the event.
Wow.
And added to Professor P.L.O. Lumumba is Dr. Anthony Christopher Chibo Christopher, who is a professor of economics. And he will be speaking to the very heart of the problem, which is the mismanagement of the many resources that Africa is blessed with, and how these resources can be harnessed to ensuring that we save the lives of our youth and children. And also to Professor Chibo would be His Imperial Majesty, King Professor Frankem Achenkeng, who is a professor of international politics. He will be coming in from the United States to also add as one of the guest speakers. But I have left last His Excellency, the Ambassador of Tunisia in Nigeria, who shall be one of the key guest speakers. These people, whose names I have mentioned, shall be there to speak to the very heart of this problem and profile lasting solutions. But there was a question you asked Abenisho that I'd like to address, which is, what does Africa hold for its young people that can make an African desire to stay in Africa?
That's right.
Now, that question is pregnant with many children, and the answer will vary depending on who is trying or attempting to respond to it. But what I want to say to our young people is, after this summit, on the same day, at the same venue, almost just an interval of 30 minutes, we are going to be launching the Irregular Migration Mitigation Skills and Resource Center. Centers that will spring up at different geopolitical zones of Nigeria, where people will be trained for free on skills, requisite skills. We're not talking about skill acquisition, empowerment, the way you have been hearing it, where you have people just show shovels and they say they are empowering young people. We are talking about real trade, patented skills acquisition.
So it's not just about the summit
No,
itself.
we're not there to just talk.
There is the talk and there's a walk aspect of it.
Yes, of course.
So
without
after the
work.
talk, a walk is in preparation.
Yes, we are launching, we are unveiling and I said it in the press conference that we had a few days ago, that we are working with state governments in Nigeria, and we are also calling on African leadership, heads of governments in different African nations, to partner with us and provide us a place. We will come and train, certify them with world best practices, certification in plumbing, in welding, mechanics, electrical, just name it.
This initiative, from what I've been hearing from you, is an African initiative.
It is, of course, when you say blacks
Styled in Nigeria.
yes,
And it's taking place in Nigeria.
yes.
Now tell us more about this event, the venue and all of that, the security apparatus in place.
Okay.
And then besides the keynote speakers, which other people are you looking forward to attend?
We have invited every ambassador of nations that are in Nigeria as at today.
Wow.
We have invited people from civil society. We have invited the government officials that are relevant in the area of irregular migration. We have invited people that we call strategic partners in view. We are proposing brotherhood partnership, progress partnership with government agencies and UN agencies that have focus on well-being, on enhancing and improving the well-being of the human person. And outside of that, we also have friends, the youth, who are the target audience. We are having from Clifford University, for instance, some youth, some students of international law and diplomacy, they call of history and international diplomacy, that will be coming. And some students of Babcock University from international law and diplomacy and from history department that will be coming. We are also inviting other students of history and international law and diplomacies and political science and public administration, because you cannot be an effective leader if you do not trace the history of your nation. And it's going to be a very, it's an epoch-making event. Someone like Professor P.L. Olumumba will not tell you where we are, except he has traced where we are coming from and where we should have been if we got things right. So for every young Nigerian, they need to be at this summit so they can get the information that will be disseminated for free.
Every Nigerian.
Every Nigerian is invited.
Okay, you heard it. This summit is going to be for every Nigerian.
The lawmakers also.
And the lawmakers. And you heard it from the convener of the summit, Ames. So be there, all right? Be there. It's going to be a robust gathering, and then you're going to have a lot of information to take home from that event. But again, it's not just going to be about the summit. It's going to be an unveiling of a book. The Japa Conundrum. So let's talk about Japa Conundrum now and the book.
Okay. The inspiration for the book came from the theme of the event itself. The theme of the event, as you know, you have said, that is the Japa Conundrum, comprehensive strategies to curbing the irregular migration practices. And from there, the inspiration to write a book and document this properly came. And the book title, which God has helped me to write, of course, with the strong support of the team, the board and the directors of Black Ancestral Native Communities, that I have said is chaired by Ambassador Sani Bako, MNIMFR, has several sections to it. It's about 13-chapter book that is titled Japa Conundrum, Socioeconomic and Psychological Considerations. As a psychologist, I could not talk about this without having to deal with the psychological dispositions of people who embark on these journeys. I've had personal interviews with people who are victims. of these irregular migration practices. I call them victims because they didn't achieve their purpose, which was a better life. Majority of them. Some of them succeed anyway, do not get me wrong. There are some who have successfully walked through these death pathways and succeeded, they arrived safely at their destination of choice and were accepted, because the United Nations has a charter that every migrant must be protected when he arrives at your shores. And they have taken such measures in succeeding, as it were. However, this book talks about the socio-economic and also the psychological considerations. It is a must read for every young person. It's a must read for students of international law, diplomacy, history, and of public science, public health, political science.
So it's kind of a documentation of anti-immigration, anti-irregular migration practices.
Not necessarily a documentation of anti, it's also a documentation of positive migration pathways and migration patterns.
All right, that's it. I've been speaking with the convener of Anti-Irregular Migration Summit coming up in Abuja on the 19th of September
at the Nigeria Air Force Conference Center, Abuja.
Nigerian Air Force Conference Center, where the venue is, and what time is it starting?
It's 10 a.m.
It's 10 a.m.
The participants must be seated before the special guests.
If you're not going to come for anything, you're going to come because Professor P.L. Lumumba. I've listened to Professor P.L.O. Lumumba a couple of times on the social media, and is one man you want to listen to over and over again for his brilliance, for his eloquence, for his depth of wisdom and knowledge. You want to listen to him. So that summit is a must attend for you, wherever you are, and whichever profession you are involved in.
Yes.
All right. This is Celeb Cafe, and this is where we feature Africans doing exploits by Africans and for Africans. And then we're focused today on anti-irregular migration in Africa and how to curb that syndrome. Thank you one more time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Chibuzo Onyema.
I appreciate it.
It's always a delight speaking with you.
The pleasure is mine always.
Hope to see you
Thank you very much.
sometime again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yes, yeah, bye.